led by architect and director Daniel Burnham.
And Daniel Burnham?
Lighting up over 100,000 bulbs.
Did American history. There are places in history that feel more like dreams than facts. Omaha 1898 is one of those places. They called it the Trans-Mississippi and International Exposition, but what they built wasn't just an exposition. It was a city, a white city, carved in classical stone, lined with lagoons, colonnades, and domes that reached the sky. And then it disappeared. You've probably never heard of it. You're not alone. Because something about this fair feels like it was meant to be forgotten. Buried beneath time, beneath memory. And the more you look at it, the stranger it becomes. We're told it was a celebration of expansion, a gathering of nations west of the Mississippi, an event to display progress and power. But what they built feels much older than 1898, older than Omaha, older than America. The photos don't lie. They show temples, monuments, wide reflecting pools, archways that echo Rome, and sculptures that rival Florence. And this, in Nebraska, constructed in under 2 years. Who built this? Because when you stop reading the official description and start looking at the structures, you begin to realize something. We don't build like this now. We didn't build like this then. So who did? We're told it was made from plaster. We're told it was temporary. But when you see it, the scale, the symmetry, the precision, it doesn't feel temporary. It feels permanent, rooted, ancient. It looks like it's been there for centuries, not something recently assembled, but something that was already waiting to be uncovered. They said the fair was a triumph, and then, like so many others, it was torn down. Quickly, cleanly, erased. By 1899, it was gone. Ask yourself, why? Why build something so elaborate, so majestic, only to destroy it a few months later? Why spend millions of dollars, mobilize thousands of workers, lay track, sculpt fountains, carve statues, only to leave no trace? And more than that, why don't we remember it? This was a major World's Fair. Millions attended. Mark Twain wrote about it. Buffalo Bill performed at its gates. And yet, nothing. No textbooks, no Hollywood dramatizations, no coffee table books in museum gift shops, just photographs and silence. It's like history itself decided not to include it, and history rarely forgets on accident. What was this fair really? A showcase? A celebration? Or a ritual? A mask? a burial. Because when you start looking across the timeline, a pattern begins to emerge. Chicago, 1893. Omaha, 1898. St. Louis, 1904. San Francisco, 1915. Each one a city of wonders. Each one built in impossible time. Each one destroyed. Like someone was erasing something or covering their tracks. Or maybe hiding someone else's. Here's what we know. The Omaha Fairgrounds took up nearly 2 square miles. They built an artificial lagoon, stone bridges, and an entire government plaza. They erected 21 major buildings. They installed electric lighting in 1898 in Nebraska. And just like Chicago's White City, Omaha was built in classical symmetry. The same lines, the same geometry, the same massive facades. Almost like they were following a blueprint. But whose? Because it doesn't look like we built it. It doesn't feel like we designed it. It feels inherited. Like something far older, like something someone else left behind, and someone decided to use it just once more. Then tear it all down before anyone could ask the wrong questions. Maybe we weren't supposed to ask at all. Maybe that's why you've never heard of the Omaha Fair, because it would raise the questions they don't want us to ask. Not how it was built, but why it was here. And if this happened in Omaha, what else is out there? What other cities? What other ruins? What other forgotten echoes of a civilization that wasn't supposed to be remembered? Because once you see it, you feel it. That unsettling sensation in your chest, like the past is a little too close, like someone else's fingerprints are still on the marble, like we're walking through the remains of something that was never truly ours. There was a fair in Omaha. It lit up the night. It stunned the world. And then it was gone. But maybe, just maybe, it never should have been here at all. And maybe that's what they've been trying to erase. Not just the buildings, but the memory of who built them.
In 1898, something strange rose from the plains of Nebraska. A city, barely 50 years old, carved into the quiet edge of the Missouri River. They called it the Trans-Mississippi and International Exposition. And for 5 fleeting months, Omaha, Nebraska became the epicenter of a grand, almost mythic vision. A vision of what America thought it had become and what it believed it could still be. The fair wasn't born from necessity. It was born from ambition, the kind that claws upwards and is desperate to be seen. In the early 1890s, Omaha's leaders, merchants, politicians, railroad men, looked to Chicago's Columbian Exposition and saw a mirror they wanted to step through. The West had grown, tracks split the Rockies, Boom towns emerged. Fortunes rose from wheat, from cattle, from the dust. And Omaha, an unassuming city on the edge of the frontier, wanted to plant its flag at the center of it all. Within 2 years, ambition became architecture. A stretch of prairie, known as Coons Park, was transformed into something almost surreal. A classical dreamscape of white plaster, shimmering water, and electric light. Crews carved out a lagoon by hand. They raised columns, domes, and palaces. They did this from the scaffolds and dust, and at the center stood the Grand Court, flanked by colonnades and crowned by the towering Arch of the States, a monument to unity or conquest, depending on where you're standing. At night, electricity bathed the structures in ghostly light. Omaha didn't just shine, it glowed. Over 2.6 million people came, by train, by carriage, and by foot. Exhibits showcased the spoils of American expansion. Harvesters and irrigation machines, mining rings, and railroad maps. Educational charts, paintings, livestock, and architecture. Over 4,000 exhibits, all whispering the same thing. Look what we've built. But not everything was as white as plaster and electric wonder. Tucked between the palaces and promenades were exhibits meant to depict the other. The most infamous, the Indian Congress, a living showcase of over 500 indigenous people from 35 tribes. Marketed as educational, presented as entertainment, dances, ceremonies, crafts, all framed through the lens of conquest. Visitors gazed through the bars of culture, fascinated but distant. And though some now see the gathering as a moment of cultural preservation, at the time, it was largely seen as proof. Proof that the frontier had been conquered, that indigenous people and the cultures they carried were remnants of a vanishing world. And then, war. During the fair, the Spanish-American War erupted. Suddenly, the U.S. wasn't just pushing west, it was pushing outward. To Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines. With new territories came new visions. And so, in 1899, Omaha opened the Greater American Exposition, a continuation of the first fair, but darker in tone. Gone was a celebration of taming the plains. In its place, exhibits of tropical plants, colonial maps, captured weapons, and objects labeled as native curiosities. It wasn't subtle. America was no longer expanding, it was consuming. And just as quickly as it came to life, the dream collapsed. The plaster cracked, the domes peeled, the lagoons dried up, and the lights went out. By the end of 1899, it was all gone, demolished, and then forgotten. Today, a quiet park and a forgotten marker are all that remain. No white domes, no flickering lights, no echo of footsteps across marble. But if you listen closely, Coons Park still hums with the memory of something almost unreal. A place built on a vision, pride, and illusion. And for a brief moment, Omaha touched the myth of empire. They called it the White City of the West, but beneath the plaster, behind the lights, it was something else entirely. A mirror of American ambition, and a monument to how quickly even our grandest dreams can vanish to dust. This was the fair that time forgot. But maybe it's worth remembering. What we choose to celebrate and what we choose to ignore.
So what does it mean when a city this grand disappears? Not just the bricks, not just the fountains or the statues, but the memory. Gone. Ask yourself this: how many times does something have to vanish before we stop noticing it's missing? First the buildings, then the records, then the names, then the questions. They told us it was just plaster, just decorations, just a fair. But plaster doesn't glow like marble. Plaster doesn't hold its form under rain, wind, time. And memory? Memory doesn't collapse in 6 months. Not unless someone makes it collapse. We know what they say, that it was just a fair, that it served its purpose, and that there was no reason to keep it. But what if that was the reason? What if keeping it would raise too many questions? Like, why build it in Omaha at all? Who designed the domes, the geometry, the symmetry? Why does it look like something from another civilization? One that we're not supposed to remember. You can feel it in the photos. Not nostalgia, not pride, but loss. And something deeper, something harder to name. A kind of whisper in the back of your mind. You were never meant to see this. You were never meant to remember. But you did. And now you can't look away. And maybe the most haunting part is this. What if Omaha was only one of many? Not the first, not the last. Just one stop in a circle of building and burning, revealing and hiding. Each fair more elaborate than the last. Each one buried deeper until the pattern itself disappears. And we walk over the ashes, build new cities on top of them, and call it progress. So maybe it wasn't just a fair. Maybe it was a signal, a test, a glimpse into a vision of history they didn't want us to keep. And now, it's back. Because you saw it, you heard it, you remembered. And that's where it begins again. Not in the ruins, not in the buildings, but in the questions they hoped no one would ever ask.
If you enjoyed this polished retelling of progress and civilization,
And if you're questioning what's really been buried under the official story,
then don't forget to like the video
Share with the ones who aren't afraid to ask why.
Follow and subscribe for new episodes uncovering forgotten marvels.
And the history that still yaps beneath the ruins.
Because the past isn't silent, it's yapping.